Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast where I bring you the best and the brightest from the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me on this journey that I like to call the podcast. The podcast is my canvas to showcase amazing human beings, unpack their career stories, unpack their career journeys, so you could learn from them. And not just you are learning, but I am learning as well. I'm learning a ton. And this show really, truly is my masterclass. And for those of you who've been listening a long time, you'll notice at the end of every episode, I ask a couple of questions. And one of them is, what is the greatest piece of advice that you've ever received that you take action on daily? So I decided after about 140 episodes to collect about 12 of my favorites, put them all together, add a little color commentary, so you could kind of get a best of this advice. So sit back, or if you're in your car, sit up, crank your headphones, get comfortable, listen and learn. Here we go. First one up is from episode 130, a recent episode with one of my favorite guests, Gwen Whiting. Gwen is the founder of The Laundress here in New York, recently sold to Unilever. They are a bespoke custom textile cleaning product. And her story is absolutely incredible, starting work in Ralph Lauren. She actually went to Cornell School of Textiles. I didn't even know Cornell had a school for textiles, but she went to Cornell, came out, went to work for Ralph Lauren for a number of years, and thought there had to be a better way to clean her clothing and fabrics, and she came up with it. So this is Gwen's clip right here where she really talks about the truth about accomplishing and getting to success, which is hard work. Check it out.
I wish I was given some magic advice, but I really wasn't. All I know is that I got everywhere with real true grit, and my energy driver is really hard work. It's dedication, it's devotion, it's discipline. And and from gymnastics background is like using every muscle to get there to move.
I tell everybody that it's work. You have to put in the work. Of course, there's hacks out there and shortcuts, but they're only going to get you so far, and it will be a house of cards, and it'll crumble at some point. You have to put in the actual work. And what would you say is your true superpower, right? Like, what would you say that makes you just special in who you are?
I am a creator. I have a creativity to life, and I use that creativity in every element, from problem solving to my interests to traveling, friendships, earning, jobs, all of that. I mean, applying that creativity in all these elements is really sort of my superpower.
Next up, we have my man, Jordan Harbinger. Some of you might know Jordan. Jordan is a absolute beast in the world of podcasting. He has a top global podcast, The Jordan Harbinger Show. He's interviewed everybody, celebrities, politicians. But some of my favorite shows from Jordan himself are his solo episodes, and when he talks to his friends about his time in North Korea and his other adventures. Absolutely incredible. So Jordan has a very tactical piece of advice around your calendar. And one of my other favorite guests, Dave Meltzer, talks a lot about this, being a student of your calendar, about blocking and tackling. Check it out.
So if something is on my calendar, it every single time gets done, barring, like I had some other thing come up that I had to put in there. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't get done. So if someone's like, hey, can you talk right now? I'm like, no, because right now it says walk, or right now it says play with your kid, or right now it says, go on the podcast, or right now it says read. And like my wife, she's good about this now because half of her job is to protect my time. But when I worked with a larger team, there would be people that would say things like, why? I mean, no offense, you're just sitting there. And I'm like, well, I'm reading. And they're like, so you have time? And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm reading. And they're like, God damn it. Because they wanted to like have a meeting. And I go, no. And my business partners, they used to get really mad at me because they'd be like, you're not even doing anything. And I'm like, the reason that the show is good is because I do all of these things and I don't just get distracted by your whim because you want to go to In-N-Out Burger and you want it to turn it into a meeting. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. And that has been magical for my productivity because I get up, I spend zero cognitive bandwidth thinking what I should do next because everything's on the calendar already. And if somebody wants me to do something, I have to find a place for it in the calendar. So if someone says, hey, I got this thing, it's going to take 2 hours, I don't just go, yeah, sure, let's do it tomorrow. And then I have like 17 2-hour things to do tomorrow. If it doesn't fit in the calendar, it's not happening on that day. So when someone says this is going to take 2 hours, I go, great, July. And they're like, wow, that's really far out there. And I go, yeah, that's what I get. That's when I have 2 hours to spend with a stranger, you know?
Next up, we have one of my favorite people, not just on LinkedIn, but everywhere, is Lea Turner. I've known Lea for about 8 or 9 months at this point. We connected on LinkedIn. She is absolutely incredible. She is inspiring. She is an amazing only parent. She's had incredible success over the last year of building her own business and her own entrepreneurship journey. And in this clip right here, from episode 108, Lea talks about screwing up. We all do it, and the lessons that we learn from it. Check out Lea's take.
Don't be afraid to fuck up.
Amen.
I think that's my biggest asset, is that I'm not afraid to try and go wrong, because at least I tried. Because you'll never win if you don't try.
In episode 121, I introduced everybody to Tamara Keller, who started her own ad agency. Pretty cool, really culturally relevant stuff right here. She talks about her trials, her tribulations, how she got to this point in her journey. It's a really fantastic story, and I hope you check out her journey of entrepreneurship. But as far as her greatest piece of advice, Tamara really talks about something that we kind of all need to do these days, about staying present, really being in the moment, and being able to learn from that. Check out Tamara.
I literally have so many, but the one that I have in my email signature is, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's about staying here in the present moment. And I'm a huge Eckhart Tolle fan. And I think that when you work with such high energy clients that our team works with, there are so many highs and lows throughout the day that you have to stay in this present moment, because 5 minutes ago, you can't change, right? You can't control what happens in 5 minutes. You only can control this present moment. And so trying to just stay grounded in this exact moment has been really powerful for me, because it allows me not to go too high or too low with the way the day can take me, right? So
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, try to just stay in this moment. It's the only one that we can control.
Episode 126, I brought you Arah Sims, who created Cutie Nails. Really interesting product itself, but it's really about the backstory behind it and the cultural relevance. She got behind elections and voting, some really cool stuff here. We actually got a case of her product in the mail, and my daughter and my wife spent some time a couple of weeks ago on a rainy day and put the nails on. It's really good stuff here. But when it comes to advice, it really is about not quitting and using that motivation of friends and family to drive you forward, the people that are closest to us. The people that are North Stars, which I talk about a lot. Check out Arah Sims right here.
Don't quit. That resonates the most with me. And that's the feedback I get from my family. I mean, I'm human as well. Times get tough. You're really walking in faith. You don't know what's going to happen the next day, even the next hour sometimes, especially in a pandemic. And I think that when you're an entrepreneur, when you're passionate about what you're doing, there's just something inside of you that just ignites you and keeps you going. And although I get down sometimes, or though I have days where I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? It's that little voice, or it's my family, or it's my friends that really are my quote unquote footprints in the sand and tell me don't quit, keep going. And I've gotten as far as I have because of their support and my dedication.
Next up, we have Cathy Heller from episode 69, host and creator of Don't Keep Your Day Job. And I just love Cathy's outlook on life, on what she created, the empire that she created, and the life that she lives. So check out Cathy's take on the best piece of advice that she has ever received. Cathy Heller, episode 69.
I went to Jerusalem after college on a whim. I had never been there before. And I was supposed to be there for a couple weeks, and I wound up staying there for 2.5 years and learning and kind of immersing myself in mysticism. And it was just incredible, learning and growing as a person. And what I learned, I never knew growing up, which is that everybody loves gold and diamonds because it's rare, right? It's a rare resource, so it costs more money. But the most rare thing in the world is an individual, because your DNA, it's completely unique, completely. And I don't think I really knew until I was there that we are each this unique, needed piece of starlight, whatever you want to call it. We are here for a very brief time, and we are not the same as anyone else. Like my sister and I grew up in the same house. We're very different. Twins are very different. So we're each here to do something unique, and to know that you're needed is very powerful.
So let's talk for a minute about Steve Nudelberg. Steve is one of the most fascinating people I ever met because he really combines that fundamental, old school business foundational mindset and thinking with new wave entrepreneurial spirit and tenacity. And when I had a chance to interview Steve a few months back, he said something to me quite interesting. At the end of every conversation he has, he asks folks to tell him something good, to end on positivity. Check out Steve's take right here on his greatest piece of advice that he's ever received.
Wouldn't it be a shame to be climbing the corporate ladder just to realize it's leaning against the wrong building?
That's a good one.
You know, it's the whole mentality of, there is a book that says, do what you love and the money will follow. I am having the greatest time of my life sharing my gift. And you know what? There's more riches in that are not just money riches. And I think we were programmed, go get the money, go get the car, go get the house, go get the shit that you can show everybody else how great you're doing, but you're miserable. If you do what you love, there's so much energy and so much passion in that's where you're supposed to be.
So one of the really cool parts about the podcast, actually going back to the origins of the show, why I created it, I have a immense, amazing network of folks that I've worked with, that I've connected with over the last 20 years. So when I first kicked the show off, I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I could really showcase a lot of these individuals and tell their stories and tell our stories together and what I learned from them. And one of them is Sarah Sheehan, who I've had the opportunity to work with at SiriusXM for about 5 years, going back to 2006, 2007. I worked in marketing, she worked in HR, and we were work buddies. So fast forward to 2019, Sarah and her partner founded an incredible company called Bravely, where they basically go into organizations and they offer professional coaching, workplace coaching, mindset coaching to help folks in that organization be better. And especially now during the pandemic, this has been an incredible resource. Sarah is an amazing human being. I'm excited to share her story and her best piece of advice that she ever received about and from her grandma.
My grandmother told me once, I'll never forget it. We were in the bathroom. She was like putting eyeliner on and I was obsessing about something. And she said, Sarah, people don't think about or care about you as much as you think they do.
It's hard for me to think.
You're
not that important.
Yeah, but it gives me perspective every day to face my fears and go forward.
Let's take it to episode 110 with my man, Erik Huberman, who is the founder of Hawk Media. Talk about an entrepreneur. Talk about tenacity. Talk about somebody who just went out there, got it done, and just keeps taking his chances. His greatest piece of advice is exactly that, swinging the bat, making sure that you're taking your chances, because if you don't take your chances, you're not going to get anything. Erik is awesome. Check out his clip and definitely check out his episode. That's number 110.
Swing the bat. Just go for it. Every single day we're trying something new. We're just going for it. Like the things that we've accomplished, just because I'm like, well, shit, let's try it. What happens? We either end up where we are right now or we accomplish it. Let's try it. So swinging the bat, we just go for it was always the biggest thing.
Next up is my homegirl, Reena Friedman Watts. A little bit of a backstory on Reena. Reena is a connector, just like me. She is an absolute beast at finding ways to connect people, to find people, and to make things happen just like I do. Fun fact, Reena actually gave me my first opportunity to be a guest on a podcast a couple of years back and really believed in me. She has her own podcast out. It's called Better Call Daddy. I'm going to be on that shortly. Definitely check that one out. And Reena's piece of advice is really around keeping a clear accounting of what you do. And not just financially. We're talking about those steps, the process, all those things that you did to accomplish your goals, so you have accountability and a track record. Really tactical, but she had some really great context around it. Check it out, and that's episode 63, going back to 2019. Check it out.
All of my best advice comes from my dad. And I think the best piece of advice that I have recently started doing daily is you've got to keep a really clear accounting of what you do for your clients, for yourself. Even if people say, oh, don't worry about it, you have got to know the people that you reach out to, the way in which you reached out to them. You know, you need to get super organized, just so there's no misunderstandings later. Yeah. And if you ever want to be like, oh, how did I get a hold of Howard Schultz? How did I get a hold of Derek Sievers? How did I, you know, you need to either email yourself or create files, or just accountability, organization, record keeping is so, I've really, that's something, like, I'm a creative, so it's something that I have to push myself to do. But I think that that's a really good piece of advice.
Episode 49, I brought you Miss Confidence herself, Heather Monahan. If you're on LinkedIn, she is everywhere. Heather has a great story similar to mine, where she got fired from a job and came back and bounced back even better and stronger than she was before. And it all comes down to confidence. So her piece of advice really is around don't sounding too desperate. And desperate is not attractive. Check out Heather Monahan's greatest piece of advice she's ever received on episode 49 of the podcast.
I mean, I have my two greatest quotes, I guess I would say, that I live by. Steve Jobs, about you can only connect the dots, you know, when you're looking backwards. I try to think about that every day, because sometimes we feel frozen to move forward and we don't know what's going to happen. And this door just closed and we want to cry about that. And we're so upset, only to find out in the future, thank God that door closed because another one opened up, or that was a crappy deal and I should have never even been considering it, right? The other one is one of my mentors back in the radio business said to me, there's always going to be another deal. There'll always be another partnership, another opportunity, another guy. You know, desperate is unattractive. When you come at things as, all right, that deal's not for me, I don't need it, I can walk from this, that's when opportunity starts presenting itself, instead of hanging on so desperately to something, feeling like that's the only thing it's ever going to be. And that's a real mind shift that I think everyone needs to employ. That, big one. Yeah, it's great to, you know, see special opportunities, but they're not the only ones that are ever going to be there. So don't get too hung up on it.
Yeah. And last but not least, I'm going to take you to episode 108 with Chiara Adin Moore, founder of NA Collective, an agency I did a lot of work with back a couple of years ago. And Chiara's advice really is at the essence of advice: being true to yourself and always keeping that North Star in focus and keeping laser focus on the mission at hand. So check out Chiara's piece of advice right here, and definitely check out episode 108.
I'm going to go with one my mom told me, which is do what's best for you and always stay true to yourself. And when you're making decisions, and if you do what's best for you, it's generally speaking going to be best for everyone else around you. If you try to appease every single person's decisions or what they want from you, you're never going to appease everybody, and then you're going to be stuck.
That's a good one. I love it. Mamas know.
Moms know. They're so good.
I want to thank everybody for joining me on this very special episode of the podcast. Again, this is my masterclass. This is my opportunity to learn through osmosis, and in turn give back to you guys the opportunity to learn from such amazing folks. And I know I featured only 12 right here, but you could go back to thepodcast.com and check out all the great episodes. So many great guests I've had in the past, so many amazing guests I have coming up in the future. And I want to thank you all for joining me. Again, check out thepodcast.com. Please take care of each other, stay 6 feet apart, wash your hands, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast.